So in my prediction video, I said that UFC Vegas 100 was not something to be celebrated because I do still think that it is pretty sad that we saw 100 fight nights take place in the Apex, and most of them have been very forgettable. But I don't think that this one will be, for multiple reasons. We had many finishes on the card, which was great. We had many great fights on the card, which was great. And for me personally, this is my first ever perfect UFC card. Yes, I have done YouTube for over 3 years now and still not picked a perfect UFC card. I can't believe it took me this long to do it either. But hey, you've got to get it done at some point. The amount of times I've been one fight off, or even 2 fights off, or perfect going into the main event and then getting the main event wrong, I could probably say has been at least 5 for sure, and the main event wrong sort of thing. So I was nervous going into the Prates fight, I will be honest. But we got it done. A 11-0 card. I feel pretty good about it. I've got so many perfect Bellator and PFL cards in the past, but I just haven't been able to do it with the UFC, unfortunately, and we've finally gone and done it here. I do want to talk about the card, and I think these post-card reviews are probably something that I will start bringing into a little bit more now that I am now going to be working full-time, and I'm just going to have a little bit more of a schedule where I can just sit down and watch the full card live, because if you guys don't know, the cards take place here during the day for me in New Zealand, so they start at 10 p.m. and they usually finish 10 a.m. sorry, and they usually finish at like 4 p.m. And sometimes, you know, my friends might have plans to do something on Sunday, or I might have to study for an exam that's on Monday or Tuesday, and I might just not be able to watch the full card all at once, so I have to watch it on replay sometimes that night of. But I think now that I just don't have any study to do, really, I think I will be watching the cards in full, and I will be able to do full card reviews. And it also gives me something to talk about over the summer, as I do have intentions of just putting out more content in general. 2-minute intro to talk about the card. Let's go. Carlos Prates, of course, got the win in the first round over Neil Magny. Now, I know Neil Magny was coming off a KO loss, but you do have to say this. People don't do that to Neil Magny. People don't just beat him up on the feet like that. And I know a lot of people do kind of laugh at Magny in some ways. I think that you kind of have to talk about the fact that if you need to rely on someone to accept any fight at all, you call Neil Magny. I feel like Neil Magny is like kind of one of those unsung BMFs of the division. I mean, if you look at the guys that he has fought, he doesn't say no to fights, clearly. I mean, I think a lot of people would probably have turned down Gilbert Burns last year. I think a lot of people would have turned down Gary and his rise. Michael Morales especially. Carlos Prates now, I think a lot of people wouldn't have said yes to, and especially Shavkat Rakhmonov as well. I think there's a lot of guys on this list of fighters that Neil Magny has fought that a lot of people would have avoided fighting. You know, even Mike Malott, I would say, before that fight, a lot of people would have probably said no, and Magny says yes every single time. So I do hope he's on a good contract. This guy is just one of those, definitely a company fighter for sure, but also a little bit of an unsung hero of the division. But now let's talk about Prates. Prates is legit. He is going to be 110% now a prospect to keep your eye on if you weren't keeping an eye on him before, which of course you guys know that I have after speaking so highly on him before the Contender Series even started. And I think that Prates now has a lot of fun fights. I think that if you put Carlos Prates in there with Jeff Neal, I think he beats Jeff Neal, you know, I really do. But if you put him in there with Jack Della Maddalena, who he also called out, maybe we can start having different conversations. I think that would be a tough fight for Carlos Prates, just because I do think that the way that you beat Carlos Prates on the feet and the striking is you have to close the distance. But Neil Magny tried to close the distance and he got caught with that short left hook that face planted him. So maybe Carlos Prates just has made himself one of the most dangerous strikers in the UFC in general. But I think that Prates showed a lot in this fight. He showed takedown defense that I don't think a lot of us knew that he had. Now, I knew that he had developed good takedown defense because, as I did say in my prediction video, that the way that Carlos Prates started to win fights was when he developed takedown defense. Now, he did start out losing a lot of fights, but in this case, a lot of the time he just had bad takedown defense. And then all of a sudden, it was obviously something that he worked on clearly, and he just started winning fights. That's pretty much how you put it, pretty simply, I'll be honest with you guys. And Prates has started to win fights, and he's done so very well at the UFC level. Now he's going to be ranked. Sky's the limit. I think that Jeff Neal is a little bit more realistic than JDM, especially if JDM is potentially in those Shavkat Rakhmonov sweepstakes or the Shavkat Rakhmonov fight, or maybe he's going to fight Covington. Who knows, but Prates versus JDM is a great matchup too, but I think Prates versus Neil is a little bit more realistic. Co-main event, of course, Garbrandt pulled out. That's a shame. I had Garbrandt as an underdog there, but Rainier Dorita fought against GM3. I did tweet in the middle of the fight, one exposed, and I know a lot of people got confused by that because I know that RDR won. RDR wasn't just your normal guy at one. He was a 2-division champion in 2 different weight classes. 2 different weight classes he was a champion of. And he just went to, I guess you could say, war with Gerald Meerschaert. And I know that everyone loves the legendary GM3 because he is a legend. But, I mean, this is Gerald Meerschaert, you know. This is a guy that probably isn't even in the top 30 of an already shallow 185-pound division. And your 2-division champion just had a close fight with him. I know that he wants to fight Nikita Krylov next week. And honestly, I would love to see it. I was saying before this fight even happened that I could see RDR just taking the fight against Krylov if he can beat GM3, but I thought that GM3 was going to lose to RDR in 1 or 2 rounds. Rainier Dorita got hurt on the feet, kind of got exposed. I mean, he just didn't look that good. Neither guy looked that great. I'll be honest with you guys, Rainier Dorita, he kind of just looks like the kind of guy that will crumble against any power puncher at all. And honestly, if you did Mansour Abdulmalik versus Rainier Dorita right now, Rainier Dorita would be a massive favourite, I think, but Abdulmalik would be a very, very live underdog in a matchup like that. Now, we have Gaston Bolaños defeated Romios. I thought that Gaston Bolaños won the fight. I don't think that he won the fight 30-27, though. I thought he won the second and the third round. Now, he was doing the better work in the first rounds, but I think that maybe he was knocked down at the end of the first, and Romios had that choke in towards the end, and maybe that stole him the round, but it is what it is. I could kind of tell that Romios was gassing out. Now, both guys were gassing out, but Romios really started to gas out towards the end of the first round and then really pushed through in rounds 2 and 3, but Bolaños was just kind of doing the better work on the feet. And even in the grappling, I think was a big surprise. Bolaños, I've got the hiccups, this is terrible. Bolaños was able to defend that rear naked choke position for a very long period of time in the second round. And then after that was able to reverse it, do some damage on top over a gassed out Romios, landed some nice elbows. And then the third round happened, same sort of situation. Bolaños gets on top towards the end and ends up kind of just doing more damage. That was it. Jillian Robertson defeated Luana Pinheiro. I expected a finish. She didn't get the finish, but kind of once again, the cardio of Luana Pinheiro kind of let her down. I thought that she was doing some pretty good work on the feet because as we know that Jillian Robertson just doesn't really have like any striking at all, but you know, Jillian Robertson was doing well to pressure, cut off the cage. She was able to get the takedowns, get some ground and pound, get some submission attempts going as well. She had a couple like attempts at arm bars and stuff like that, was able to get the top control. Overall, she did win the fight and she really stole it in the third round, I thought. And then also at the end of round 1, she had she was doing the 12-6 elbows, and then Pinheiro, yeah, I think she posted on Instagram that situation. Just anyways, she kind of elbowed Pinheiro where the sun does not shine at the end of round 1. Mansour Abdulmalik just decimated Dusko. And now Mansour Abdulmalik, I know that he didn't look like one today, but he is a wrestler. That is his style. His striking, I thought, didn't look very technical at all. I think probably everyone saw that. But man, this guy does still pose a big threat on the feet. He doesn't really have like great technical striking, but I think he makes up for a lot of it just with pressure and power. And we did see him knock down Dusko like multiple times. Dusko was just running away from him the whole time after that first big shot landed. And Dusko was trying to throw up some leg locks and stuff like that. And I guess maybe that is where you could see potential for Mansour to lose against a very, very good grappler. Because even in the finishing sequence with the ground and pound, Mansour still had his right leg kind of in that position that Dusko was grabbing it for the leg lock attempts and the heel hooks and stuff like that, the knee bars. So yeah, maybe we could see Mansour maybe just struggle with a very good grappler like Paul Craig or something like that. But I don't think Mansour is going to be fighting an elite grappler anytime soon. He is, I still think, a bit of a raw prospect, a little bit of a guy I would like to see fight with a little bit more experience. I know that he was unloading like massive power shots, but the cardio, it looked like he was starting to slow down just a little bit. But yeah, I like Mansour. Now, Denise Gomes defeated Karolina Kowalkiewicz. She just kind of beat her up on the feet for the most part. Now, there was some pretty low IQ moments, I thought, where she would hurt Karolina with a combo and have her moving backwards and then close up the clinch. And then Karolina would be better in the clinch because Denise Gomes isn't that big for the weight class. And just in general, she is a striker and not a grappler at all. But Gomes tried to kind of show off a lot of different sort of aspects of her game. But yeah, overall, just landed the better shots. Kowalkiewicz, being the veteran that she was, knew that she was down in the third round and did try and come out very aggressive with high volume in the third round, which I think you can respect. You know, she kind of recognized that she was down and tried to take over, but Gomes just ultimately landed the better shots overall in the fight. Zaleski literally fought a sacrificial lamb. I did a full breakdown on this fight. Jeez. Now, I knew that Zach Scroggins' striking was bad, and I knew that he had no striking defense, but I'll be honest with you guys, I just didn't know that Zaleski was just going to be able to smoke him like that. I'll be honest, he landed one really good shot, sat Scroggin down, and then the ref maybe was sleeping in the cage because that fight could have been stopped many times. I feel like before, so like Zaleski landed so much ground and pound on Scroggin, it was kind of insane. But he got the first round finish. Scroggin was sacrificed to him. I think that Scroggin kind of does have like a lot of attributes to where he could maybe be pretty good in the UFC. But, you know, being 6'3" and a wrestler grappler. But now that I kind of see this fight, I'm like, you know, it's just like, I just don't know if he's got the striking to even deal with someone like Preston Parsons. You know, Preston Parsons might knock this guy out on the feet, you know what I mean? But yeah, nonetheless, Charles Redkey beat Matthew Semmelsberger. Once again, I picked Redkey by sub. Now, I didn't expect him to get the KO in 51 seconds. So, a Redkey KO doesn't really surprise me all that much because he does have decent boxing, pretty fast boxing. But, yeah, he just kind of caught Matthew Semmelsberger being slow. And this is kind of sad for Semmelsberger because I think this will be his last fight in the UFC. And he did have a lot of highs, man. Like the AJ Fletcher win was pretty big when he defeated the 9-0 prospect, but he knocked out Jason Witt in 16 seconds. Knocked out the GOAT, Martin Sano, in 15 seconds, if you guys remember that Nick Diaz situation. Anyway, Charles Redkey knocked him out in 51 seconds. I still don't really know how to feel about Redkey just in general as a prospect because he is getting older, but if you can knock out Matthew Semmelsberger in under a minute, you're legit. I thought he was going to get the sub. He got the KO. It was a good performance. It really was. Damon Blackshear defeated Cody Stamann. Now, Cody Stamann, sorry, I always get that surname wrong, but I guess it's not going to matter because I think he's getting cut. In his last 8 fights, Stamann is 2-6 now, and he's on a losing streak. Stamann's an odd fighter, man, because he is good. That's the thing about Stamann. He does have a very solid skill set. He's a decent wrestler. He's a decent boxer, but he just hasn't quite been able to put it together. And I did pick Damon Blackshear to win the fight, but I didn't think he was just going to like hurt him with a flying knee, drop him, and then just get a quick submission over him in the first round. That is a big fall from grace for Cody Stamann because, correct me if I'm incorrect, he was ranked, and not even that long ago, when he fought against Said Nurmagomedov in 2022, I thought he had a ranking beside his name. Or maybe he didn't. But I'm pretty sure, voice crack, at one point Cody Stamann had a ranking, and that's not even that long ago. Big fall from grace for Stamann. Probably his last fight in the UFC as well. Probably Antonio Tricoli's last fight in the UFC too, unless he's going to get a third fight against someone like the guy from Bolivia that lost to Zach Reese recently, Jose Medina. Unless he fights Jose Medina, I don't think we see Tricoli in the promotion again, but they might just do Tresean Gore versus Jose Medina. Let's be honest here. Maybe Tresean Gore fights him, but yeah, Tricoli just standing guillotine choke. If you guys don't know, Tricoli was arrested last month, so the UFC probably really doesn't want this guy on there. Just overall, kind of bad news for Tricoli throughout this whole fight camp. I picked Gore to win. I picked Gore to win by KO. Standing guillotine. Kind of random, but kind of awesome as well. I think Gore's actually got multiple of these standing guillotines now, if I'm not incorrect. He got the guillotine over Josh Freeman. It wasn't standing, but yeah, Gore looked pretty good. I mean, we only saw a minute 23, so I guess going forward, it'll be interesting to see what happens, but I wouldn't mind just seeing Gore fight against Jose Medina, because we know that fight is probably going to last at least a round to kind of see how he's going after that injury. But a good performance for Gore. And then, of course, the moneymaker, the lock of the week, Melissa Mullins. I know that the lock of the week was Melissa Mullins to win by submission, and she didn't win by submission, but she won by ground and pound, and I had $100 to win $390 on Mullins inside the distance. We made that happen. I cashed out $300 out of that, spent it because there were a few things that I wanted to purchase, but just in general, probably couldn't have afforded to if I didn't get that. So thank you, Jacob, for that. Appreciate that. And then I was just placing bets throughout the whole card. Some of them were a lot smarter than others. I did have Gomes KO. I did have Bolaños KO. I did have RDR sub though, and I did have Prates KO as well. So, and then I had a bunch of other stuff as well. I had Zaleski KO. I had a lot on Zaleski KO. Yeah. Anyways, overall, it was a great night for me. If you guys haven't picked that up, I am getting back into sports betting. Probably for the best or for the worst. I have been taking breaks. Usually, it's just because in the past when I've been studying, I have been just so stressed about the studying that just kind of the added extra stress, and I know a lot of people probably don't even view sports betting as stress, but that extra stress was kind of just getting too much, so I took the step away. But just this semester, I had no stress studying at all, and I think it's just because I just kind of am just in a much better place in general, and I made a lot of friends as well at uni now, so that makes things so much easier. So yeah, we're back, sports betting. Probably for the best. I mean, I have been betting on the last few UFC cards, but for the most part, I've been betting on the NBA. If you've been in that Discord, that is the We Want Picks Discord. But yeah, perfect card for me overall. 16-minute breakdown. That wasn't that long, actually. That's not too bad. UFC 309 comes up next week. Call me a casual fan, but I am honestly more keen on the on this Macau card, because if you guys don't know, I covered the Road to UFC tournament, and I am very interested to see a few of these Road to UFC guys. Just kind of tap that on the end. And also another card that I'm very looking forward to is the Gary versus Buckley fight, because Navajo Sterling makes his debut in the UFC on that card, and also apparently they've found the replacement for Onama. No, ignore me. Have they found the replacement for David Onama for UFC 309? I think they might have rebooked that. But anyway, Felipe Lima's on that card too. 309, I'm going to make my prediction video on it today. I do just need to finish up some tape study on this Martinez-McGee fight, because I'm a little bit confused about that one. And then also just kind of need to brush up some knowledge on the Mickey Gall versus Ramiz Brahimaj fight. And this one too, because like just I'll be honest, guys. No disrespect to these guys, but the lower rankings of the MMA, that's the hardest to predict, I think, in my opinion anyway, and I've got to do a bit more on that. But let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next video, which will be my 309 predictions. Hopefully we can go back to back. I think 309 is probably going to be a harder card to predict overall, but yeah, I think there's a couple easy spots. I'd be very surprised if John Jones lost, but nonetheless, I'll see you guys in the next one.